a look at what's going on, where and when, and all of that sort of stuff. That is to come for you in a minute or two. We'll work through all of that. We've had stuff all the way through the day. But what on earth, Phil Blundell, Fulham playing at here?
Feels a bit mad, the whole thing, doesn't it? In terms of you sort of felt it was in their interest to get the deal done when the more you saw about it, with how they could quite feasibly lose him for absolutely nothing in the summer, couldn't they? So you would have expected that they'd have been actively working towards a situation where they get more money, they get to keep him for the end of the season, and you thought that everything was lined up for this to get done as soon as possible, really. But it's sort of, you've been expecting to hear something for the majority of the afternoon, I would say. Sort of, there just doesn't seem to be anything, no movement at all. And the longer it goes on, it's not even you're getting information that there's a chance that it falls through. It's just that there's no information whatsoever, which doesn't seem to be great, does it?
It's Rob. It's not entirely sensible. I don't think. I think this is the bit I sort of struggle with on it. Unless the players decide that he's prepared to sort of dig in and wait, it just doesn't seem entirely sensible from Fulham's point of view. Maybe it'll change. Maybe they'll decide to accept Liverpool's offer. Maybe it'll all motor in a minute or two. But it's all a little weird.
Well, the only way I can read it, I mean, we've been through every permutation in the early shows, but the one way I can read it is that Fulham don't buy Liverpool's bluff, that Liverpool aren't interested if they can't do a deal now, and that they are convinced from their inside sources that Liverpool and Carvalho have done a side deal. And they think that they can they've done an estimation of what they can get out of a tribunal from Liverpool. They don't fear Borussia Dortmund or Porto, a foreign club, which would yield them nothing. They think it's Liverpool or no one. And they think we'll take our chances in a tribunal because we estimate we'll get a minimum of 7.5, 8 million. I'm hypothesizing. And Liverpool are sticking in at 5. If you're Fulham, that's why you turn it down. You think there's no way we'll get less than 5 from a tribunal. And we think it's definitely Liverpool or another English club.
I mean, that's a point of view, Rob. I'll just come back to you on it quick. I think there's a certainty there that Liverpool will go down that route. The big thing to me is that what they've leaked around time and resource is one of the things I think, not just money, but resource. The idea of, do Liverpool want to be turn up to tribunals, having to prepare things, go through this rigmarole one more time? It seems like it's something that's done our heads in the past, all of this. We've been in a couple of them recently. I don't know, I sort of get the impression Liverpool might be a bit happy to shrug the shoulders a little bit.
I just don't buy that. I mean, we've got staff. Somebody can go and sit off and fuck around in a tribunal. And it's not like we're talking, we want to pay 20 and a tribunal could make us pay 30, 35. This is, we want to pay 5 and tribunal could make us pay 8. I mean, it really isn't going to be out. Shock horror headlines, 10. We're talking those kind of levels. Liverpool are trying to spook Fulham into thinking that they might get 0. Because a foreign team could come in, which don't have to worry about the tribunal side of it. And I think Fulham think we're 90% sure it's Liverpool regardless, and therefore the tribunal will come into play, and we're 90% sure we'll get more than 5. And the other 10% we think the other 5 of the 10% is another British club, which would also yield us money in a tribunal. I don't think anything else makes sense. I think the Liverpool CBA with it that they're trying to put out there, I just don't buy it.
Rob doesn't buy it. John, do you buy it?
No, not really. I think Rob's explanation there is the most likely. I also think as well what's coming into play is a little bit of bad blood over the Harvey Elliott stuff, and a little bit of sort of Fulham not willing to feel like they're doing Liverpool any sort of favours whatsoever. And I think that's something that happens and is, I guess, a little bit of a price of business. And when we, often we talk about Liverpool's good relationships with football clubs and after deals done, it's like we do sometimes say as a club, well, it helped that, there's good relationships between the MDs and stuff. So I think we need to, accept that on the other side of the coin, there'll be people who we get on with less and that are less willing to sort of, to smooth things over if they don't have to. And I think this is coming to play a little bit here. And look, there's maybe not anything Liverpool could have done about that. They probably felt that getting Harvey Elliott and a superstar like Harvey Elliott, it was worth putting a few noses out of joint. And maybe they feel they're being a bit unlucky that the next young Liverpool player, that the young one that they want to get through is at the same club. I mean, what was the sort of chances of that? I guess Fulham would say it's a good academy, but so I think I don't think necessarily Liverpool will be wishing they'd have done things any differently over the Harvey Elliott thing. Maybe it was a necessary thing to do to sort of whatever happened that pissed Fulham off so much to sort of get the player. But I think there's a little bit of a Fulham going, do you know what? Why should we? Why should we do all this to try and sort of help you out? You know, we'll take our chances and see what happens.
Take our chance and see what happens. Phil, Liverpool, I think the main thing about this is Liverpool obviously have got not necessarily the thing they wanted to get done this window, but one of the things they wanted to get done in this window or the next one here with Diaz. For me, I'm still surprised with the knock-on effects that both, as it stands, Minamino and Origi look like they're going to stay at the club, given the fact that now you'd think for practically every game between now and the end of the season, Liverpool are picking 3 from 5, and those 5 does not include Minamino or Origi. I think there's, for me, I'm quite surprised that this is that it doesn't look to have been any movement on either of those two at this point.
Yeah, it's not even so much that it's 3 from 5. It's almost 5 from however many for the match day squad as a whole, because it's not it's not just the starting lineup. It's really difficult to see a world where both of them are actually on the bench the rest of the season. When you actually break it down and look at the players available, even when there's 9 subs, it is genuinely difficult to see how they're even in match day squads. So if you go back to the start of the season, I think there's a game, I think it might have been the Chelsea game, where Curtis Jones is on the bench. Never mind like Minamino or Origi now, where Diaz is here. There's genuine players who are way further up the pecking order who weren't involved at that stage. Now, this is before you even get into the point of view was we looking at the bench and going, well, I'll tell you what, how am I getting either of these on the pitch? I just think there's a real position where, particularly Origi, where you're in a position now where his value is sort of trending towards almost 0, particularly if he doesn't if we don't hit the criteria for him to get the new contract. It's hard to say you get anything for him in because you're basically saying, well, we've got no use for him, so how are you holding people to ransom and saying, right, you need to pay us this for him? Because how are these players getting on the pitch and how are they being involved? I just don't see it, and it is getting more and more odd. That Origi particularly, I can sort of see the Minamino thing, I can sort of see it, but I just don't really see what the game is.
The Minamino thing, Phil, is in part, I suspect, to do with the fact that he's away with Japan, which it's literally very difficult. I was reading a piece this morning. It's very difficult for anyone to do a medical on him at this point. That if almost his deadline day was 3 or 4 days ago, in a strange way. And this is one of the things where you remember that.
You need our delegation, Neil.
Well, our delegation wouldn't be able to get in the country, John. You'd have to sneak in.
Get it done. Our boys, our team.
Our boys would sneak in the cover of darkness, freighted in a container ship.
Yeah. Oh no, the Saki goes the other way. Oh, this guy, I'm not involved.
You couldn't be trusted, John. You couldn't be trusted to do it. And there's a lot to be said for not discussing criminal conspiracies live on many platforms.
Again, another reason why they don't hire me.
Yeah, there's another. Sorry to cut across. There's another. We've gone through all the options here. I thought we've covered all of them, but I thought of another one because I'm reading some interviews with what's his name, Silva from I don't know, maybe 3 weeks ago. Marco, yeah. Fulham could think they could convince him to sign a new deal, albeit with one that he could get out of, maybe with a low release clause or something. But they could say to him, do you know what? You're only 19. Give us 1 more year.
Yeah.
You will be up in the Premier League. You'll be cutting your teeth with us in the Premier League. We'll give you a big pay rise now because I bet he's on $5,000 a week or something like that.
And we'll give you like a 14 million release clause because it's more than we get right now anyway. Yeah. We'll get you for another year.
Yeah, so he goes, well, bird in the hand here, the decent, maybe they're going to give me £1 million for the rest of the season. They're going to give me £2 million next season and a 14 million release clause. The likes of Liverpool aren't going to go away, suddenly not want me, and there'll be other suitors there. Maybe the money on me goes up. Why should I sell myself short to Liverpool now? He might be thinking to himself. I don't know.
That's very, very fair, Rob. But it is still a gamble for Fulham because Fulham could just still end up in a situation where Liverpool where the player goes, "No, you're all right," and then we end up back round at the tribunal. Are you surprised, Rob? There's been no interest in Minamino or Origi yet.
Yeah, I mean, they're good players, and if you rate them, you want them. Do you know what I mean? You don't wait till the last minute and go, if I don't get Origi, I don't get Origi. I think at a certain level, you should really want Origi, quite frankly, and at a certain level, you should really, really want Minamino, and for them to be sort of afterthoughts for you. I think that surprises me. Yeah, I thought there'd be a level where you could pitch it where you go, yeah, and it's not like Liverpool are going to hardball on Origi. It's not like Liverpool are sticking on 18 million.
No, but it's possible that Divoc's going to hardball.
Well, I was going to say that. You see, I think from Minamino and Origi's point of view, a season that's when they're with a top side, world top 3 or 4 side who are in 4 competitions, a lot of games to play, a lot of possibility of injuries and resting being needed. They could go, you know what? I may only start 3 more, get off the bench 4 or 5 more times. I might end up with some silverware and look back on this. The likes of Shaqiri have done that before. I think Sturridge maybe thought it's worth it. What's the harm? I'm still going to get a move somewhere in the summer.
What I think on Origi, will you do Origi first, John, is, for instance, I could make a really strong argument that Brighton and Hove Albion, who sit 9th in the Premier League, have only won 6 times all season, drawn 12, have only scored 23 league goals, that if you were to put Divock Origi into Brighton and Hove Albion's team, they'd be better, they'd be scoring more goals, they'd be winning more games of football. That's what I think. It's genuinely my opinion. If I'm Divock Origi, I'm thinking, yeah, but I can be playing Champions League football somewhere on the continent, and I'll never play Champions League football with Brighton, and I'll probably never play Champions League football again. And I think this is the if we put ourselves into Origi's shoes, this is the difficulty, I think, of being Divock Origi.
Yeah, and he's played pretty much his whole career in the Premier League as well, so maybe he just wants to try something else. Your Champions League point is a good one, Neil, and I think there will be Champions League clubs, certainly if he's on a free, who'll be sort of queuing.
Atalanta keep coming back up, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, I'm sure there's teams, in Germany who are on the Champions League places who would love to take him, and you look at his career, he's obviously we get him quite younger than he does. A year on loan in Germany sort of doesn't really sort of work out, but I think for us it's a case of trying to get him in sort of a place where we feel we can make some money off him, or at least sort of make use of him between now and the end of the season. They're the 2 things that are in there for Liverpool. Really, it's a case of who will, what's the best outcome for Liverpool, and if it's not a permanent transfer and some money coming in, then I do feel that Phil's bench point is an excellent one around. I think Minamino will really struggle to get on benches, where I think Origi, you put him on there because there's often a scenario where he can be useful.
And you haven't got anything else like him.
Yeah, exactly. So I think for Divock, he is looking at that, and I think from a Liverpool point of view, we'll be looking at how do we get the maximum we could possibly get from him that we want from him between now and the end of the season.
Comment there from Kuhn Lee says, should keep them as long as they're happy and not disrupting morale. Make no apologies for having a big squad. I don't see Man City, Chelsea or Man United making any apologies, Phil. The thing on that, Man City don't have a very big squad at all. Man United are trying to slim their squad down. Chelsea are the slightly weird ones here in terms of all of that, where they do seem to be able to rock along with a relatively big squad. But there is the idea, I think, of just having not just lads who are nowhere near the 20 person match day squad, but who are just some distance away from that. And I think it's interesting in general. It feels to me a little bit like, with the links to Neco Williams going away as well, that Liverpool are sort of prepared to do the thing that they sometimes do in the second half of seasons, and other clubs do in the second half of seasons, which is just shrink to a tight unit, because every game from now on's a big game.
Yeah, I think that is the key thing, that you don't get the League Cup 3rd round games that you do. You don't get the League Cup 4th round.
No Champions League dead rubber chance.
Yeah, exactly. You don't get the FA Cup 3rd or 4th round. Well, the 4th round's a bit different this year, but you take the points anyway. These aren't things that the games that you use your squad players in just simply don't exist in the last few months of the season. So whilst the numbers are good to have, the chances of these players actually being used, they just decrease massively, and it becomes a point where you're sort of like, well, what is this person actually doing here? I remember there's a few players we've let go in January's in the past that have been involved in bits and pieces before that point. I think Nathaniel Klein, for example, in 2019 he went out. I think it was, wasn't it? And
yeah,
he plays once before January basically, and then he goes, and it's sort of that kind of thing that happens again. Like Williams, for example, even if I think you discussed this on the free show today about if Trent does get injured, is Neco Williams going to be the man who is the one that's in it right back? And it's hard to argue that is definitely the case. So you can see why he may not be here. And there is a situation where, you know, big squads are good. They're there, they help you train, but there becomes a point where the players can just possibly come a little bit disruptive, and that's not what you want either.
On the exits, Nat Phillips gone to Bournemouth, John. They've had a bit of fun with it. I've seen already on the social with him, Cruyff turning Zlatan and all of that. He must be going there to play. There's no other possible explanation as to why he's going. I mean, they've got quite a decent centre-half partnership there at the minute, Bournemouth, but they're not quite where they'd want to be in the league. It's a chance for him to get some games. Are you surprised it isn't a Premier League club?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, because and also there was Premier League clubs interested. Apparently, Leicester were interested in one and maybe one other, and so I'm a little bit surprised that he's not. He's not gone for one of those, and you start to think why. I don't think it's necessarily around the loan fee, because it's £1.5 million, isn't it? That he comes in for, and so you think, well, what, you know, I can't imagine Leicester would offer in sort of much less than that for us to be sort of bothered, really. So I can only think, I think it's Liverpool who've largely made the call, and I think it's maybe they're thinking about, well, what's going to get the best price for him in the summer, and it's him playing more or less every week, really. And maybe the concern is if he goes to, say, a Leicester, then he might get some games now while they've got a lot of injuries. But when it comes to, say, March, if people are coming back, you know, he's Brendan Rodgers thinking, well, I want to get these boys sort of for next season, really, rather than be sort of playing him. And so I think Bournemouth have got a clear target that they want to come up. I think defensively they've struggled a little bit more recently. I think Gary Cahill came in and looked the business for a while, and then now looks 37 or whatever all the years were from when I've sort of seen them recently. And I know there's a couple of, you know, issues there about suspensions that might only be short term, but I think this is, you know, I think maybe even more Liverpool. I think Nat Phillips got to the stage where he would have gone more or less anywhere, to be honest with you, if he was going to sort of play and enjoy it. And that's more or less. I don't think he was looking to go to Kidderminster necessarily, but like his mate Reece Williams. But I think you know, he just wants to play, and if it was a decent club doing, you know, involved in exciting things, he sort of would have gone for it, really. I think this is Liverpool looking at it and thinking, well, what gets us 10 million in the summer? And what probably gets him 10 million somewhere is if he comes in, he plays every week, Bournemouth go up, and then Bournemouth probably pay you, to be honest with you.
And it's some night out.
It is good. But I was laughing with Ghosty before on Talking Transfers, saying he's carrying on the long tradition of Scousers going to Bournemouth for work. When you go down there, there's loads of lads saying, "Okay, down about 10 years ago. Only planned on staying 6 months.
Yeah.
Well, you know, got a better bed down here, and you know, the beach is great. Yeah, so that'll be Nat."
They're very pleased to see you. It is worth saying, in Bournemouth. Very, very pleased to see you. I might go and watch him for a game, John. I'm sure we can find a way to act like it's work if we put our minds to it in April.
Absolutely, we can swing that as content.
Yeah, last weekend in April popped down. Big Thursday night, student night, marvellous. There is... Neco's interesting to me, Rob. I thought he would be gone by this point we mentioned there, Nat. I thought Neco would be gone today as well, coming back, speaking to his advisors. Again, are you surprised that Neco's not gone yet?
Yeah, I am. Yeah, I mean, again, of all of them, of our availables, he's probably the most interesting to other clubs. I thought somebody might come in with a proper bid for him as well, tempt Liverpool to take some money. I'm surprised there's not a minimum of a loan. It's hard to see. There's a lot of Premier League clubs below the top six. You'd think Neco would improve potentially. So I am surprised. And again, if it happens last minute, I'll be more surprised, I think. I mean, unless it was a bidding war and somebody had offered Liverpool only 11 and Liverpool wanted 16, and those things go to the last minute. But no, I'm very surprised. Is it a slow transfer window in general? I can never calculate these things. For
it's
us,
really
it's
hard
to
tell. It's really hard to tell until a little bit afterwards, because they're always weird. They're always a little bit strange. Always quite odd. Other thing to point out, Phil, is other clubs have been relatively busy. Constant users and some would say abusers of the transfer windows. Tottenham and Everton have most definitely been at it again. In the same way that I thought Alex Iwobi could do a job for Everton, Dele Alli could do a job for Everton, but it's as likely he does exactly what Alex Iwobi has done.
I think we're past the point where Dele Alli's doing anything, to be honest. There's that many. How many managers are we on who've had a little go with him now? Is that 4? Pochettino, Mourinho, Ryan Mason, Nuno, Conte's had a look at him, and none of them have gone, oh, do you know what? Having a look at this. Like,
Does no one think he might Jesse Lingard? Because Jesse Lingard had a lot of managers.
He might Jesse. I think this is an excellent point from John. I think he might Jesse Lingard.
Possibly, but
they've got to pass to him.
Lingard,
got no one else to fucking pass to.
They've got to build the fucking team around him. Quite frankly, they might get something out of him.
They just look like different players in terms of mentality. Lingard and Ali. Like Ali doesn't look like he takes it quite as seriously as Lingard, and I think that's part of the thing with him is that he's just. It almost looks like he's not prepared to listen to top managers, and that.
But he hasn't got to work for a top manager.
But the interesting thing is the new manager comes in and thinks, oh yeah, Dele Alli, and then they drop him like a stone. It happened with Mourinho, it happened with Nuno, and it happened with Conte as well. I think he starts in the very early stages of all three managers. So if those three are not able to do it, I don't see how Lampard's doing it. I think it's a really big gamble, especially for the position Everton are in, because the one thing about bad transfers is they aren't bad straight away. They're bad because you have to see them happen. And Everton are in a position where they can play someone who's bad. No, I don't think.
I think Van der Beek will do all right for them, the brethren.
Interestingly, though, one of the problems Van der Beek's had is not being able to play with Bruno Fernandes. You can't get the two of them in the same team. So is that not going to happen the same with Dele Alli as well? Like, how are you getting Dele Alli and Donny Van der Beek in the same team? I just don't. I don't see how that's working, especially with Decore and Allen as well. That's not like Everton have now got too many midfielders. I just don't see how these players are fitting together.
All right, Phil. I mean, I hope Lampard's not watching this. It's bad enough if he's got Parliament Live on. He's fucked. It's going very, very badly wrong for him, John. Tottenham doing bits, knocking around the place. Villa might do a bit or two. I am intrigued by this. I mean, Tottenham's strategy appears to have been lash everything at a wall and see what sticks.
Yeah, they've gone for the spaghetti approach, haven't they? And yeah, we'll see. I mean, it looks like they're doing some interesting stuff. I'd like to sort of take stock on it once it's all finished, because you look into it a little bit and then things need to sort of fall through. But it looks like they've done some interesting deals. Zakaria as well going to Juve is an interesting one. It's 5 million plus an extra 3, which feels like a bit of a bargain. It feels like one that if he does well, that there'll be a few Liverpool fans a bit upset that we didn't sort of go in hard there, but I don't know. I think we've put our eggs into the Tuchemeni basket, to be honest with you, and so
it's a good basket.
It feels a good one. You like his number, you like his wheel, don't you, Neil?
I do. I mean, can anyone guess what my signing of the window is as it currently stands? Any takers?
I did. You know what? I thought of you. It won't be this one, but I did think of you with Burnley replacing Chris Wood with a fella even bigger.
That is that one.
That is it, yeah.
I am overjoyed that they have gone and bought a lad who's 6'6".
Crouchy is back.
When he's much more physical than Crouchy. When I discovered he existed Weghorst a few months back when he got picked in the Dutch squad, I was like, oh hello, let's have a big bowl of this. And there he is playing for Burnley, the big man himself. He will be a sight to behold, Phil.
Yeah, he will.
He backed them in.
Weird. He was weird for them at the Euros, I thought, because he just didn't look like he fitted with that Holland team in any way, shape, or form. But Frank de Boer was the manager, wasn't he? Frank de Boer seemed insistent he was playing him, and that was that. Despite the fact that you would watch them, he'd come off, they'd bring somebody else on as a sub, and they'd be well better. I think they'd bring Marlon on for him, and he'd be much better. But if there's one team where someone who is 6'6" and knows where the back of the net is from wide areas,
honestly,
he's in the right place, isn't he?
Can't wait. Anyway, listen, if something happens, we'll come back on. We'll do a little bit more for you later on. We were going to just do this till 5:30. Subscribe to the Anfield Wrap for all the fantastic stuff we've had through the day. I've got my stats show ready to go for Carvalho, so they've got to buy him now. That'll be available tomorrow. We'll do some of a roundup as well. I still think the Carvalho thing will somehow just happen. Someone somewhere will just sort of go, let's just get this sort of done now. But I could be wrong. We've all been wrong in the past. I also think this lad will bang in double figures for Burnley between now and the end of the campaign. Thank you very much indeed to Rob Gutman, to Phil Blundell, to John Gibbons, Andy Heaton for producing. More and more of this to come if indeed anything does happen from a Liverpool point of view. See you later.